Why did the gunfire sound so close, so relentless, when she wasn't even supposed to be there? The echo rolled across the Tacoma port, sharp cracks ricocheting off rusted metal and broken windows. Inside a warehouse, 6 men in tactical gear hugged concrete pillars, low on ammo, running out of time. Their commander, Lieutenant Reynolds, pressed a bloodied hand against his radio. His voice was steady, but every man in that room could hear the weight pressing down on it. Extraction was hours away. Too far, too late. Outside, footsteps shifted in the gravel. A sniper round hissed through the air, slamming into the pillar inches from Reynolds' head. Dust rained down. Their enemies were organized, trained. They weren't just pinning the SEALs down, they were hunting them. Then another sound. A single rifle shot, deeper, louder, different. The kind of sound that carried across the whole port like distant thunder. And the sniper who had kept them frozen for 20 minutes suddenly dropped, his rifle clattering out a shattered window. "Command," Reynolds whispered into the radio, heart thudding. "Do we have friendly assets in play?" A pause too long, then, "Foxtrot 6, stand by." More shots followed, precise, methodical, one after another. Whoever it was, they weren't spraying and praying. Every pull of the trigger carried weight. Men outside, men with weapons and intent, dropped into the dirt before they even knew where the fire came from. "You have overwatch," the radio finally crackled. "Call sign collegiate." Reynolds frowned. "Collegiate? What kind of call sign is that?" And then he heard her voice. Calm, steady, young. "The kind that's saving your ass, Lieutenant. I've got eyes on your position. North exit will be clear in 30 seconds. Move when I tell you." It wasn't one of theirs. It wasn't even military. It was a 22-year-old college student who, hours earlier, had been buried in textbooks, scribbling chemical equations in a quiet library. Her name was Emma Hayes. She had almost ignored the call. A strange number on her phone vibrating against the wooden table, cutting through the muted hum of students and laptops. But something, intuition maybe, or just the break in routine, made her answer. "Emma Hayes." The voice on the other end was gravel and steel. "Ms. Hayes, Colonel James Sullivan, I served with your grandfather." Her fingers tightened. Berlin, 1985. That was one of those late-night stories her grandfather had told just once, his bourbon glass catching the Montana starlight. Missions that didn't exist on paper, shadows he carried to the grave. "My grandfather, been retired for 15 years, she answered. "You want to talk to him?" "I'm not calling for William Hayes. I'm calling for you." The library seemed to go silent around her. Sullivan spoke quickly, like time itself was against him. 6 Navy SEALs, trapped, 2 wounded, hostiles closing in. Sniper support 4 hours away, too late. He said her grandfather had told him about her, about a gift, about a steady hand and an eye sharper than most men who had fought wars. Emma had tried to laugh it off. "I'm a chemistry student." "You're also the granddaughter of Ghost Wolf Hayes," Sullivan said, his voice lowering. "And you can shoot better than most combat veterans twice your age. I wouldn't be calling if there was another option. But right now, I need to know if you'll help." Her mind spun. Her parents, professors, pacifists, would have called it madness. Guns only made more guns, her father always said. But her grandfather had whispered something different in her ear when she was 12, her cheek pressed against a rifle stock. Sometimes standing between wolves and sheep means doing what others can't. Now wolves circled a warehouse. 6 men bled inside. Emma closed her chemistry textbook. Her voice shook just slightly. "Where?" Within minutes, a black SUV pulled up outside her campus parking garage. Captain Marcus Vega, sharp eyes, calm hands, drove her straight into a world she had only half believed existed. The smell of leather and gun oil, the soft hum of tires on asphalt. Emma's thoughts weren't on the road, though. They were on the weight of memories. Summer afternoons in Montana, her grandfather's hands guiding hers. The rifle doesn't make the shot, little eagle. You do. The SUV rolled into an abandoned ferry terminal where Sullivan himself was waiting. 70 years old, silver hair cropped short, eyes that still cut through excuses like glass. He didn't waste time. He pulled a case open. A Barrett M82A1, 50 caliber, black, heavy. The same rifle her grandfather had placed in her hands at 16, when she had first learned that physics and instinct could meet at a single point, a single trigger squeeze. "You know this weapon," Sullivan said. Emma nodded. Her fingers brushed cold steel, but her mind was far away, back on the ranch, staring down a steel plate barely visible 400 yards away. Her grandfather's voice steady behind her. "Trust your eyes, not the numbers. The bullet only knows the air it flies through." That day, the ping of steel had rung across the valley. Today, men's lives hung on whether she could make that sound again, except there would be no steel plate. She made one call before climbing the water tower. "Grandpa." The line was quiet for a long moment. Then William Hayes spoke, voice shifting from warmth to weight. He understood instantly. "What's happening?" She told him the warehouse, the pinned seals, the colonel, the rifle. "You don't have to do this," he said. "You told me once you didn't either. Vietnam, 1969. Silence stretched. She could almost hear the ghosts he lived with. That was different. "Is it? They'll die without help." "If you do this," he said finally, voice low, "you cross a line, you don't come back." Her throat tightened, but her words were steady. "Tell me I can." "You can," he said with no hesitation. "Not because your hands are steady, but because you know what the shot means. It's not about the hit, it's about who gets to go home." She blinked away the sting in her eyes. "I love you, Grandpa." "Be the bullet, little eagle," he whispered. "See the path before you take it." The line went dead, and Emma climbed. The ladder rattled beneath her boots. The water tower loomed high, rust eating its sides. Gunfire cracked in the distance, every shot reminding her she was leaving behind the person she had been that morning. At the top, she settled the Barrett against the railing, the bipod clamped. Through the scope, the world sharpened into angles and distances. Shipping containers stacked like walls, shadows darting between broken machinery. The warehouse, muzzle flashes, men with weapons closing in on the seals inside. "Collegiate radio check," Vega said. Emma adjusted her earpiece. "Collegiate online." Static, then a new voice. "Lieutenant Reynolds, tell me you know what you're doing." Her pulse slowed, her breathing steadied, just as she had been taught. "I know what I'm doing, Foxtrot 6. I have eyes on your position." "Sniper East building, 3rd floor," he said. "He's had us locked down 20 minutes." Emma's scope swept east. She found the glint of steel in shadow, a rifle barrel just visible. "Wind's shifting," Vega murmured, his own binoculars up. Emma felt it too, the small push of air, stronger than the chart had said. She adjusted her aim. Her world narrowed, the breath in her lungs, the weight of her finger, the crosshair that did not tremble. "One target," she whispered. "Take the shot," Sullivan's voice ordered. She exhaled, squeezed. The Barrett roared. The recoil slammed into her shoulder, but through the scope she saw only the sniper's body jerk back and vanish. "Target down," she said, her voice calm. Reynolds sounded stunned. "Confirmed, whoever you are, hell of a shot." But Emma wasn't listening anymore. Her scope had already moved, finding the next danger. A machine gun nest being set up. 2 men working fast, too fast. She fired. The first man fell across the weapon. The second reached for it. Her third shot stopped him cold. Reynolds' voice muttered disbelief into the radio. "Command, who the hell did you send us?" Emma didn't answer. Breath, aim, fire again, and again. Each shot carving away pieces of her, even as it saved lives below. Inside her something whispered. They're human beings, fathers, sons. Men who had woken that morning not knowing this was their last. Her stomach twisted, but her hands stayed steady. Her grandfather's training ran deeper than doubt. Still, she knew one truth as the empty casings fell around her boots. This wasn't science anymore. It wasn't practice. It wasn't the still peace of Montana skis. This was war, and for the first time in her life, she was in it. How many shots could she fire before doubt caught up with her? The casing clinked against the metal catwalk, rolling to a stop beside her knee. Through the scope, Emma watched another man drop to the gravel, his body folding in on itself. She didn't even hear his scream, if there was one. The Barrett's thunder drowned everything else out. Below, the seals were moving. Reynolds' voice was sharp but controlled in her ear. "We're shifting positions. Cover us." Emma shifted with them. Her scope tracked the men darting between cover, some dragging the wounded. They moved like shadows, trained, precise. But even the best trained men needed breathing room, and she was the one giving it. "Collegiate," Sullivan's voice came through the radio, steady but edged with something more. "We've identified opposition leadership. Nikolai Petrov, former Spetsnaz. He's directing the assault from the north perimeter." The name chilled her. Petrov. She had heard that name whispered by her grandfather, always with a weight that silenced the night. The ghost of Grozny, a sniper who had turned war into a chessboard, every bullet a calculated move. "He's dangerous," Sullivan added. "If you can neutralize him, it shifts the battle." Emma's throat went dry. She scanned the northern edge. No sign yet, but she knew what it meant. She wasn't just fighting nameless hostiles anymore. Somewhere out there, behind glass and steel, Petrov was watching. And if he was as good as they said, he wasn't just watching the seals. He was watching her. The thought made her skin prickle. She steadied her breathing, tried to let it go. Focus, one target at a time. Her crosshairs found a hostile rushing to flank the seals. She squeezed the trigger. The man fell. Another ran to drag him. Her second shot cut him down. "Multiple hostiles neutralized," she reported. Her voice was calm, but inside something twisted. "These aren't silhouettes. These are men." The voice that answered her was Sullivan's. It was heavier, accented, and it froze her blood. "Little Eagle." Emma's finger froze on the trigger. Her eyes darted across the scope. The voice came through her channel. "You shoot well," the man continued. Russian smooth, mocking. "Your grandfather taught you. Ghost Wolf's blood runs in you." "Petrov." Emma's pulse thundered in her ears. She hadn't even seen him, and yet he had found her. "You won't save them," he said, his words curling like smoke. "Just as your grandfather couldn't save his team in Kandahar. You'll die here like they did." A shot cracked. Metal screamed inches from her head. Sparks showered across the catwalk. "Sniper has my position," she forced out, her voice level. But her heart slammed against her ribs. "Move," Vega barked. He was already grabbing gear, eyes on her. "We're compromised." Emma wanted to take one more shot, to buy the seals another breath. But instinct screamed that if she stayed, she'd be dead within seconds. She slung the Barrett over her shoulder and followed Vega. Another shot tore through the water tank, sending a geyser of water spraying down. Emma knew the sound instantly, the distinct crack of a Steyr HS. 50 caliber, just like hers, Petrov's rifle. They rappelled down the side of the tower, the rope burning against her gloves. Halfway down, a round ripped past, close enough she felt the air kiss her cheek. Her hands trembled, but her grip held. Boots hit concrete. Vega's voice was sharp. "Vehicle east side." They sprinted. Bullets kicked up dust and shards of gravel at their heels. Emma cradled the Barrett against her chest as if it were part of her. They dove into the SUV, and Vega slammed the accelerator. "Collegiate is mobile," he reported. Reynolds came over the radio. His voice was calmer now, the edge of desperation softened by the cover she'd given. "Pressure's easing. We're repositioned. Your assist has been unexpected, but appreciated." Emma allowed herself the smallest breath of relief. She had bought them time. But Petrov wasn't done. The SUV jolted around a corner, tires screeching. Emma leaned back against the seat. Her hands were steady, always steady, but her stomach twisted. She had just killed more people in an hour than she could count. She stared at her fingers, steady on the metal of the rifle, and thought, does this make me like him? As if answering her thought, Vega spoke, eyes never leaving the road. You did good up there. Most first-timers freeze. I'm not most people. He gave her the briefest glance. Maybe respect, maybe warning. Just remember it never gets easier, and if it ever does, that's when you need to worry. They reached the secondary position, a crumbling ferry terminal overlooking the port. High ground again. Emma climbed, every step echoing the weight she carried. From the rooftop she saw the battlefield spread below, shadows regrouping, hostiles gathering around a black SUV. A tall figure emerged. His posture radiated command. Even through glass and distance, Emma knew it. Visual on Petrov, she whispered. Engage, Sullivan ordered. Her crosshairs rested on his chest, her finger curled. But she froze. Because this wasn't a man firing at her. This wasn't chaos or instinct. This was deliberate, calculated. A trigger squeeze would end a life from half a mile away. A life that had taken countless others, but still a life. Her grandfather's voice echoed. The hardest shot is the one you have time to think about. She didn't take it. Petrov turned as if he felt her crosshairs. His head lifted. His eyes impossibly seemed to lock with hers across the city. Then he stepped back into the SUV. Gone. Emma's breath trembled out of her chest. Target moved, she said softly. Sullivan didn't scold her. He just said, maintain position, protect the seals. So she did. Her scope swung back. She picked off a mortar team, then another squad pressing too close. Her shots were efficient, almost detached, but each one cut deeper inside. Minutes later, Reynolds' voice came through. We're moving to extraction, Guardian 6 inbound. But then Emma saw it, Petrov's men unloading a missile system. Russian Igla, anti-air. Her crosshairs settled on the operator. Nearly 900 meters, wind shifting, light fatting, the hardest shot she'd ever attempted. She exhaled, calculated, trusted. The Barrett thundered. The operator collapsed, the missile clattering useless to the ground. Direct hit, Vega confirmed. Relief surged, then shattered. Because another shot rang out. Concrete exploded inches from her. Petrov again, close, relentless, hunting her. Move, Vega barked. They gathered gear. Another round ripped past. And then Petrov's voice, heavy with amusement, bled through her radio. Little Eagle, your grandfather taught you well, but you will fall. And when you do, I'll send him your scope as a souvenir. Emma's blood turned to ice. Petrov knew her, not just her shooting, but her name, her lineage. This wasn't just war anymore. It was personal. A continuation of her grandfather's ghosts, now passed to her. She grabbed the Barrett, her hand steady but her soul trembling. And she whispered to herself, the way her grandfather had once told her under Montana skis. Be the bullet, see the path. And prayed that path didn't end with her. How do you keep moving when someone like him is hunting you? Emma's boots hit the rusted fire escape, metal groaning under her weight. Above her, footsteps pounded, hostiles swarming the roof they had just abandoned. Vega fired up the stairwell, short bursts keeping them at bay. Sparks flew as bullets chewed into steel. Go, he barked. Emma dropped the last 3 meters, knees bending with the jolt. She hit the ground running, the Barrett heavy across her back but never slowing her. Vega landed beside her seconds later, his sidearm still smoking. The night smelled of salt and rust, industrial dust carried on the wind. Every shadow seemed alive. Every echo could have been Petrov. 200 meters. A maintenance shed where Sullivan waited with another vehicle. Between them, open ground. "Stay low, move fast," Vega muttered. They sprinted. Bullets kicked up dirt at their heels. Emma hugged the rifle to her chest, praying every step would carry her farther from Petrov's scope. But she knew the truth. Distance meant nothing to a man like him. If he wanted her, he would find her. Sullivan's van screeched into view, headlights cutting across their path. He flung open the side door. "Get in." Emma dove inside, Vega right behind her. The van tore away, tires squealing, gunfire fatting behind them. For a moment, only the roar of the engine filled the silence. Emma's chest heaved, not from the run but from the weight in her lungs. She pressed the Barrett against the floor, staring at her hands. Perfectly steady. Always steady. But inside she was shaking. "Reynolds' team?" she asked finally, her voice rough. Sullivan's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. "Still pinned but holding. Extraction bird is 5 minutes out. Your shot on that missile team saved their lives." Emma exhaled, relief but no peace, because she heard Petrov's voice in her head, low and certain. "You'll die here like they did." The van bounced over potholes, the city lights thinning as they left the port behind. Vega's eyes stayed sharp, scanning the mirrors for tails. Emma sat in silence, the hum of the engine blending with the roar of remembered gunfire. Finally Vega broke it. "You okay?" Emma looked at him, wanted to say yes, wanted to pretend she was made of steel, but the words wouldn't come. "I killed them," she said instead. "All of them. I saw their faces." Vega didn't look away from the road. "If you hadn't, 6 SEALs would be dead right now. That's the math, that's war." Emma's throat tightened. "My parents wouldn't call it math, they'd call it murder." "And what would your grandfather call it?" Emma stared out the window, dark warehouses blurred past. "Necessary." The word tasted like ash. The safe house was nothing more than a hollowed-out office building on the outskirts of Tacoma. Inside, dim light flickered against cracked plaster walls. Sullivan parked the van beneath what had once been a loading dock, hidden from view. Reynolds' voice came over the radio. "Foxtrot 6, we're at extraction. 2 wounded aboard, Guardian lifting now. Collegiate, we owe you." Emma let the sound wash over her. They were safe, 6 men. Families would see them again. Children would still have fathers. Wives would still have husbands, because of her. And because of her, others would never go home at all. That night she lay awake on a thin cot, staring at the ceiling. Sleep refused to come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it all again. The men dropping through her scope. The way Petrov's voice slithered into her ear. Her phone, her personal one, not the secure line Sullivan had given her, buzzed on the nightstand. A text from her roommate. "Where are you? You missed Chem Lab." Another from her mother. "Dinner Sunday." Her chest ached. They didn't know, they couldn't know. When dawn came, pale light filtered through blinds coated in dust. Emma sat at the edge of the cot, hands clasped, the Barrett leaning against the wall beside her. She hadn't slept a second. Her body was still. Her mind was a storm. A knock at the door. "Come in," she said. Vega entered carrying a tray, coffee, something resembling breakfast. He set it down, studying her face. "First night's always the worst." Emma forced a ghost of a smile. "Does it get better?" Vega shook his head. "No, just different." She wrapped her hands around the coffee mug. Heat seeped into her skin. Her hands didn't tremble, not once. Reynolds arrived later, arm in a sling, his face pale but eyes sharp. He looked at her the way men look at someone they don't understand. "Miss Hayes, I wanted to thank you in person." Emma shifted uncomfortably. "No thanks necessary." "The hell there is. My men are alive because of you." His gaze lingered. "But I also have questions. How does a college student shoot like that?" Emma hesitated, then answered with the truth. "My grandfather." Reynolds nodded slowly. "Ghost Wolf Hayes, I've heard the name, one of the legends." His expression hardened, measuring her. Even with the best teacher, what you did wasn't normal. Those weren't range conditions. That was combat under fire against Petrov. Emma held his gaze. I did what had to be done. Reynolds studied her, then gave the faintest nod. Respect, reluctant but real. Fair enough. The door opened again. Sullivan stepped in, a tablet under his arm. His expression carried the weight of men who have lived too long in shadow. What happened at the port, he said, was only the beginning. Petrov isn't just working for the Black Crescent. He's part of something larger, something we call the Directive. Emma frowned. What is it? Sullivan tapped the tablet, pulling up grainy photos. Petrov in civilian clothes, meeting with men in suits, slipping into buildings across Europe. They're not just terrorists. They're professionals, operatives, strategists. They take groups like the Black Crescent and turn them into something more dangerous. Emma stared at the screen. Petrov's face was sharp, cold. Even in stillness, he radiated threat. And now, Sullivan said, his eyes heavy on her, he knows who you are. Emma's chest constricted. She remembered his words over the radio. Ghost Wolf's cub. Her grandfather's war had become hers. You have a choice, Sullivan continued. We can protect you, hide you, send you back to your life, or, he let the silence stretch. You can join us, train, fight, help stop what's coming. Emma swallowed hard. Her mind flashed to her parents, to classrooms and labs, to the life she had planned, then to the men she had saved, to the voice that had promised her death, to the legacy her grandfather had passed down without meaning to. Her answer came quiet, but firm. I'm in. Sullivan nodded. Then your training begins tomorrow. That night, she called her grandfather from Sullivan's secure line. His voice came warm, then wary. Little Eagle, what is it? They want me to join, she said simply. Not temporary, full. Silence, then a sigh deep and heavy. I knew this day would come, I prayed it wouldn't. Petrov, his voice trailed off. He's not just another sniper, he has no lines he won't cross, no leash. He'll come for you, Emma, again and again. Emma's throat tightened. I know. What does your heart tell you? She looked at the Barrett leaning against the wall. Thought of 6 men who would go home tonight because of it. Thought of Petrov, still out there. That I can make a difference. Her grandfather's voice dropped to a whisper. Then you already know your answer. Be careful, little eagle. See the path before you take it. She closed her eyes. I will. When the line went dead, she sat in silence, the phone still warm in her hand. She had crossed a line she could never uncross. The girl who had walked into the library yesterday was gone. In her place sat something new, something forged by recoil, by choice, by necessity. And though fear still coiled in her chest, one truth stood steady. She would not run. Not from Petrov, not from this fight. Her war had just begun. How do you relearn yourself when everything you thought you knew no longer fits? The training ground smelled of dust and sweat, cordite and canvas. Emma stood at the firing line, Barrett cradled against her shoulder, her hair tied back. Sunlight poured through ragged gaps in the hangar roof. Targets stretched into the distance, steel silhouettes, some standing still, some moving across tracks. Her first round punched through clean. A soft metallic ping echoed. The instructor beside her, a retired Delta sniper named Cole, didn't react. His voice was sandpaper. Again. She fired again. Another hit, then again another. Cole finally spoke. You're accurate, but accuracy isn't enough. Out there you won't just shoot targets. You'll shoot moving shadows, breathing people. They shoot back. Emma lowered the rifle, sweat beading on her forehead. She thought of the port. The way every shot had carried more weight than a number on a score sheet. She already knew what Cole was saying. She had lived it. But still she nodded, again. Cole's mouth twitched, approval hidden in his gruffness. Load. The days blurred into each other. Sunrise runs across uneven ground. Hand-to-hand drills until her knuckles bled. Long hours with rifles of every kind, from bolt action to suppressed carbines. Vega taught her close quarters. Cole drilled her long range. Reynolds, recovering but restless, ran her through tactical movement. Sullivan watched from the shadows, arms folded, measuring her transformation. But the hardest battles weren't with them. They were inside her. At night, she lay awake in the barracks, muscles aching, mind spinning. Her classmates, seasoned operatives from across the services, slept soundly. She listened to their breathing and wondered if she belonged among them. A student, a girl who, 2 weeks ago, had been solving chemical equations in the library. When doubt crept in, she reached for the phone, but she never dialed her parents. What would she say? That their daughter was training to kill, that she was following in the footsteps of the man they blamed for every rift in the family. Instead, she called her grandfather every night. His voice steadied her. He told her stories, missions in places history had forgotten, moments where one decision meant life or death. He never glorified them. He spoke with weight, with regret. But always there was the quiet thread of necessity. "You're carrying ghosts now, little eagle," he told her once. "They'll whisper to you when you least expect. Learn to live with them, or they'll eat you alive." The ghosts were already there. She saw the faces in her scope, eyes frozen at the moment the bullet struck. She remembered their weight every time she cleaned her rifle, brass shells clinking into a bucket. Yet each morning she rose, each morning she trained, and slowly she changed. Her body hardened, her movements sharpened. She learned to breathe in rhythm with her trigger finger, to hear the whisper of wind as clearly as her own heartbeat. She learned to fight hand to hand, the sting of knuckles on flesh no longer making her flinch. One evening, Cole tested her. A mock scenario, a rooftop overwatch, hostiles moving below. She tracked them, calling positions over radio, making precision shots. Then Cole shifted the scenario, civilians in the mix, hostiles using them as cover. Her finger hovered on the trigger. She hesitated. Cole's voice cut through the headset. "Make the call right now." Her pulse thundered. She calculated angles, risks. A single mistake would kill the wrong person, but waiting too long would kill them all. She exhaled, adjusted, and fired. 2 clean shots, hostiles down, civilians untouched. Cole's voice came calm. "That's the difference between shooters and snipers. You don't get perfect conditions. You get choices." Emma lowered the rifle, chest tight. Choices, always choices, and everyone left a mark. 2 weeks into training, Sullivan gathered her and Vega in the briefing room. The lights were dim, a projector humming. Maps lit the wall, ports, airstrips, smuggling routes across Eastern Europe and the Middle East. At the center of every web, Petrov. "The directive's building something," Sullivan said. "Petrov's their blade. He's not just training cells. He's orchestrating hits on assets, moving weapons. If we don't cut him off, we're going to be fighting shadows for the next decade." Emma studied the map, the red lines converging like veins to a heart. "Where do I fit?" Sullivan's eyes met hers. "You've already crossed his path. He won't forget it. You're not just a sniper anymore, Emma. You're bait, and you're leverage." The room chilled around her. She had expected to fight, to stand guard. She hadn't expected to be a piece on their chessboard. Vega bristled. "You're putting her in play too soon." "She's already in play," Sullivan said flatly. "Petrov made sure of that." That night Emma couldn't sleep. She sat in the barracks, cleaning the Barrett, her reflection faint in the rifle's dark metal. The word echoed in her head, bait. Her grandfather's voice cut through memory. "The enemy always looks for weakness. Never let them find it in your eyes." She stared at her own eyes in the reflection, searching for cracks. The next morning, Cole pushed her harder than ever. Long-distance moving targets, multiple wind shifts, stress drills under live fire. She pushed through it all, her body aching but her will refusing to bend. After one brutal run, Vega handed her a canteen. His voice softened just enough. "You don't have to prove yourself every second. You already have." Emma shook her head. "If Petrov's out there watching, then every second matters." For the first time, Vega didn't argue. He just nodded. 2 nights later, the call came. Reynolds appeared in the doorway, expression grim. "We've got movement. Black Crescent cells shifting through Serbia. Petrov's trail is hot." Sullivan assembled the team in the briefing room. Emma sat among hardened operatives, the youngest by far, listening as he laid out the mission: intercept a convoy near Belgrade. Intel suggested Petrov himself might be there. Emma's stomach clenched. It was too soon. She had trained for weeks, not months, not years. She wasn't ready. But then she thought of the SEALs, of the extraction bird lifting because she had stopped a missile team, of the ghosts she already carried. Readiness wasn't a luxury, it was a decision. "I'll go," she said, her voice steady. Sullivan didn't smile. He only nodded. "Gear up." That night, as she prepared her rifle, her grandfather called her back. His voice was soft, almost broken. "Emma, you're walking into a storm. Don't let them turn you into a weapon that forgets it's human." Her chest tightened. "What if being human gets me killed?" Silence stretched. Then he said, almost in a whisper, "Then die human, not hollow." She closed her eyes, the weight of his words pressing deep. She didn't know yet what kind of person she would become, only that the path forward was already written in blood and smoke. And somewhere out there, Petrov was waiting. Not just as an enemy, as a shadow that would define her war. What if the silence before a mission is louder than the mission itself? The cargo plane vibrated beneath Emma's boots as it cut through midnight skis. Red light bathed the cabin, painting shadows on the walls. The team sat in silence, checking gear, loading magazines, eyes sharp but unreadable. To them, this was routine. Another operation. Another hostile convoy to intercept. To Emma, it was everything. Her first mission. The point where training ended and war began again. She sat across from Vega, the Barrett in its case beside her. He leaned forward, his voice low over the drone of engines. "Remember, don't chase shots. Pick them. Make them count." She nodded, words stuck in her throat. She had fired under fire before, yes, but that had been chaos, instinct, survival. This was different. This was deliberate, planned. Sullivan's voice cut through the hum. He stood near the cockpit, tablet in hand, maps glowing faint on his face. "Target is a convoy moving weapons across the Danube border. We've confirmed Petrov was seen near Belgrade 2 days ago. No guarantee he'll be there tonight, but if he is, this is our chance." The team shifted. No words, but their bodies carried the weight of possibility. Hunting Petrov was like hunting smoke. Emma's pulse quickened. If he was there, if she saw him, would she take the shot this time? Her mind flashed back to the port, to the way his eyes had seemed to find hers across half a mile, to the way her finger had frozen, paralyzed by the truth of choice. Cole had told her, hesitation kills. But her grandfather's voice whispered another truth. The hardest shot is the one you have time to think about. The ramp lowered. Cold air rushed in, carrying the scent of river and soil. They jumped. Parachutes opened. Silence swallowed the sky. Emma landed hard in a clearing near the tree line, the Barrett strapped to her back. She dropped low, heart hammering, every sound amplified. The crunch of grass, the distant bark of a dog across farmland, the faint hum of engines on a road not far away. The team moved like shadows. Vega led point. Reynolds, still recovering but determined, moved with a limp but carried his rifle steady. Emma followed, her breath controlled, her nerves warring with her training. They reached an overlook above a winding road. Headlights cut through the dark. A convoy, 3 trucks flanked by 2 armored SUVs. Sullivan's voice crackled over comms. "That's them. Petrov may be inside one of the SUVs. Hayes, set up overwatch." Emma moved to position. She unfolded the Barrett's bipod, settled into the dirt, scope glinting faintly in the moonlight. Through glass, the world sharpened. Drivers, guards, weapons. One SUV window tinted dark, too dark. Her throat tightened. Petrov. She steadied her breath, focused. Team Alpha, prepare to engage, Sullivan ordered. The convoy slowed at a choke point, a bridge over a narrow ravine, perfect for an ambush. Charges had been set earlier by local assets. The lead truck crossed, the second followed. Then detonation. The bridge erupted in fire, concrete split. The lead truck collapsed sideways, blocking the road. Chaos. Vega and Reynolds opened fire. The team poured rounds into the convoy, precision cutting down guards before they could react. Through her scope, Emma saw one man scramble from the SUV, barking orders in Russian. Tall, broad shoulders, movements sharp, commanding. Her pulse spiked. Petrov. Her finger curled on the trigger, crosshairs on his chest. But then he moved behind a driver, shoving the man forward as cover. She froze. Civilians? No, but men forced into service. Pawns. She tracked, adjusted. The moment stretched like glass. If she hesitated, he'd vanish again. If she fired, she might kill the wrong man. Her grandfather's voice. See the path before you take it. She exhaled, squeezed. The bullet ripped through the space between them, but Petrov moved. The driver collapsed instead, blood misting the night. Petrov vanished behind the SUV door. Missed, she whispered, the word ash in her mouth. Vega's voice snapped in her ear. Haze, cover fire now. She shifted. Hostiles flanked from the tree line. She dropped two, then another. Her shots cracked across the valley, clearing paths for her team. But her mind burned with one truth. She had hesitated. Again. The firefight raged. Trucks burned. Shadows screamed. Then from the second SUV, another sniper emerged, Petrov's second. A shadow with a Dragonov glass reflecting moonlight. He aimed for Vega. Emma's crosshairs found him. No hesitation, she fired. The man collapsed, rifle tumbling from the roof. Sniper down, she reported, voice steady. But inside, doubt gnawed. If that had been Petrov, would she have done the same? The battle thinned. Survivors fled into the trees. The convoy burned. Reynolds' voice came over comms. Convoy neutralized. No sign of Petrov, he slipped us. Emma lowered the Barrett. Smoke curled into the sky, black against moonlight. She should have felt victory. Instead, she felt hollow. Back at the safe house, the team debriefed. Sullivan's expression was unreadable as he scrolled through satellite footage. You saved the mission, he said. The convoy is destroyed, supplies lost. The directive will feel that. Emma sat silent. She knew what he wasn't saying. Petrov was still alive, because of her. After the briefing, Vega found her alone, cleaning the Barrett. His voice was soft. You can't carry it all. One man slipping through doesn't erase the lives you saved tonight. Emma's jaw tightened. It does if that one man kills 100 more tomorrow. Vega studied her. You're not wrong, but if you break yourself over every choice, you won't last. Petrov's playing a long game. We need you in it. Emma said nothing. She just polished the steel until her reflection blurred. That night she called her grandfather. His voice came tired but warm. Little Eagle. She told him everything. The ambush, the convoy, Petrov slipping away. There was silence, then his sigh. I know that feeling, the one that keeps you awake, the shot you didn't take. I've lived with it for 40 years. Emma's throat tightened. How do you live with it? You don't, he said softly. You learn to carry it, and you remember why you pulled the trigger when you did. Mercy is not weakness. Sometimes restraint saves more than it costs. Emma sat in silence, the weight pressing into her chest. But listen to me, he continued. Petrov wants you to break yourself on this. Don't give him that. See the path. Always see the path. When the call ended, Emma lay awake, the sound of burning trucks still in her ears. She stared at the ceiling, the Barrett beside her bed, and thought of Petrov's eyes finding hers across impossible distance. She whispered into the dark, to him, to herself, to the ghosts gathering at the edges of her mind. This isn't over. And she knew it wasn't a promise. It was a vow. How do you fight someone you can't see, but who sees you perfectly? The city of Novi Sad stretched below Emma like a labyrinth of lights and shadows. From the rooftop where she lay prone, the Barrett pressed into her shoulder. The river gleamed like silver. The directive was here. Petrov was here. Intel said he had been seen guiding a meeting in a derelict textile factory across the river. But Emma knew better. If Petrov was here, he wasn't guiding. He was hunting. The mission was simple on paper: provide overwatch while the team infiltrated the factory, neutralize threats, cover exfil. But Emma's gut told her the paper was a lie. Petrov was the real mission. Her comm crackled, Vega's voice. "We're on approach 10 minutes out." She adjusted her scope, scanned windows, angles, nothing but darkness and empty glass. Still, her pulse quickened. He was out there. She felt it the way prey feels the predator. A whisper in her ear from memory, from that night at the port. "Little eagle." The factory lights flickered on suddenly. Floodlights. Shadows danced inside. The team froze in the alleys below. Emma's breath hitched. Then it came, a single crack, distant but sharp. A bullet slammed into the concrete beside Vega, chips flying. "Sniper," Reynolds barked. Emma's heart froze. "Petrov." She swung her scope, scanning rooftops, windows, balconies. Her breathing slowed to nothing. Her eyes tracked the faintest shift in shadow, a muzzle flash, a heartbeat too late. Third floor, north building. Her crosshairs locked. Petrov was there, calm, poised, his face barely visible behind glass. His rifle glinted faintly, and impossibly his eyes seemed to look back at her. Emma froze, her finger hovered. He smiled just slightly, then fired again. The round tore through the air, catching Reynolds' helmet, jerking his head sideways. He staggered but didn't fall, shaken but alive. Emma's pulse thundered. She adjusted, exhaled, fired. The Barrett roared, glass shattered. But when the dust cleared, the window was empty. "Missed," she whispered, throat tight. Her radio crackled, Petrov's voice mocking low. "So close, little eagle, but not enough." Another shot. Sparks erupted inches from her rifle. He wasn't just firing at her team. He was firing at her. Cole's voice cut in through comms, calm but urgent. "Emma, counter-sniping is patience. Don't rush. Let him show himself. Make him believe you're blind." Emma pulled back from the scope, chest heaving. Every instinct screamed to fire again, to hunt him like he hunted her. But she forced stillness. She waited. Minutes passed. Her team moved below, shadows weaving between cover. She whispered calm updates, keeping them alive. But her eyes searched for him. Then there, the faintest glint, an angle he hadn't masked perfectly. She didn't think she knew. Exhale, squeeze. The Barrett thundered. The window exploded. A body jerked sideways. "Silence." "Target down," Vega asked, hope in his voice. Emma's scope stayed locked. Dust swirled, nothing moved. Then a radio hissed. Petrov's voice smooth as ever. "Better, much better, but you still only winged me." Emma's blood turned cold. He had let her see him, let her fire, a lesson, a taunt. "Team Xfil," Sullivan barked over comms. "Now we're burned." Emma held her scope steady, searching for movement, but Petrov was gone, again. She pulled back, collapsing the Barrett. Her hands were steady, her heart was not. As they retreated across the rooftops, she whispered into the night, a vow that was both promise and curse. "One day, Petrov, one day I won't miss." And somewhere in the dark, she swore she heard him laugh. Part 7. What happens when the war outside begins to sound like the war inside? The debrief was silent, heavy. The team had escaped alive. Petrov hadn't. But the truth lingered in the room like smoke. He had been close enough to end them all and hadn't. Emma sat at the edge of the table, her hands folded, her rifle case beside her. Sullivan spoke, but his words felt distant. The directive isn't just moving weapons. They're building networks, political influence, financial backers. This isn't terrorism anymore, it's infrastructure. He tapped the screen, showing maps, lines connecting cities like veins across continents. Belgrade, Istanbul, Berlin, Washington. Emma's eyes lingered on one image. Petrov grainy stepping into a black car with two men in suits. Not mercenaries, not radicals. Men in polished shoes, ties sharp as blades. He's not just a sniper, she said softly. He's their messenger. Sullivan nodded. And his message is fear, assassinations, collapsed negotiations. When Petrov pulls a trigger, the world shakes. Emma's chest tightened. She thought of her parents, blissfully unaware. She thought of the campus she had left behind. People who thought wars happened in deserts, oceans away, not in quiet European streets, not in classrooms. That night she sat alone in the safe house stairwell, the Barrett across her lap. She hadn't called her grandfather. Not tonight. She was afraid of what he'd hear in her voice. Because doubt was winning. She thought of the driver who had died in her place, of the civilians Cole had forced her to shoot around, of Petrov, smiling through glass, always one step ahead. Am I his equal or his prey? Vega found her there in the dark. He sat without asking, leaning against the wall. For a long time they said nothing. Finally he spoke. You're not the first to feel it. You won't be the last. The doubt, the ghosts, they don't leave. Emma's voice was low. Then how do you keep fighting? He shrugged. Because someone has to. And because every time I pull the trigger, I remember who I'm protecting, not who I'm ending. Emma swallowed. His words made sense, but they didn't quiet the storm. 2 days later, Sullivan called her in alone. His office smelled of old paper and coffee. He slid a file across the desk. Inside, her face, grainy photos, campus ID, family details, her parents' names, their home address. Her stomach turned to ice. How? Petrov, Sullivan said grimly. He leaked this to the dark channels. The directive wants leverage. You're exposed. Emma's hands clenched. Her parents, her classmates, they didn't know. They couldn't. Sullivan's eyes softened just slightly. We'll relocate them if necessary. But you need to understand something, Hayes. This isn't about who you shoot anymore. It's about who you are. Petrov isn't trying to kill you. He's trying to unravel you. Emma closed the file. Her jaw tightened. Then I can't let him. But that night, in the quiet of her bunk, she admitted the truth to herself. She wasn't sure how much of her was left to unravel. The girl from the library felt like a ghost. The one staring back in the mirror wore shadows in her eyes. She whispered into the darkness, not sure if it was to herself, her grandfather, or the man hunting her. I won't break. But she didn't know if she believed it. How do you end a war that was never really yours, but found you anyway? The snow fell in whispers across the Carpathian Mountains. Pines swayed, their branches heavy with white. The directive had retreated here, an old Soviet radar station carved into rock and ice. Intel said Petrov was there, alive, waiting. Emma lay prone in the snow, the Barrett against her shoulder. Breath steamed from her lips, vanishing into the cold. Her team was spread along the ridgeline behind her, Reynolds coordinating, Vega at her side. But she knew this wasn't their fight. Not really. This was hers. Convoy approaching from the west, Reynolds' voice crackled. Looks like resupply. Emma's eyes stayed locked on the dark mouth of the radar station. Her finger hovered above the trigger guard. She felt the weight of every ghost at her back. The SEALs in the port, the driver in Belgrade, the civilians in Cole's drills, every missed shot, every life taken, every moment Petrov had stolen from her. The radio hissed, and his voice slid through, low and steady. Little eagle. Her pulse skipped. You followed well, Petrov said. Better than I expected, but this is where it ends, for you or for me. Vega swore under his breath, glancing at Emma. She didn't look away from the scope. Petrov wasn't bluffing, he wanted this. A duel, hunter and hunted, no walls between them anymore. Sullivan's voice cut in, calm but hard. Hayes, do not engage recklessly. The mission is to cripple the directive supply chain. Petrov is secondary. Emma whispered almost to herself, not to me. She exhaled. Snow crunched faintly across the valley. Movement. A lone figure stepped from the bunker, wrapped in dark winter gear, tall, rifle slung across his back. Petrov. He moved with ease, as if the world itself bent around him. He stopped in the clearing, lifted binoculars, and looked directly at her ridge. Emma's finger tightened. Take him, Vega hissed. But Emma didn't fire, not yet. She studied him through the scope. His face was calm, no fear, just inevitability. Her grandfather's voice whispered in memory, see the path before you take it. And suddenly she understood. Petrov wasn't here for the directive. He wasn't here for convoys or supply lines. He was here for her. This wasn't strategy, this was legacy, his and hers. A crack split the silence. Snow burst inches from her scope. Petrov had drawn first. Emma rolled, adjusted, sighted. But he was already moving, slipping into the tree line. The duel began. For minutes silence reigned. Then a shot from the left. She dove, snow kicking into her face. She rolled behind a rock, scanning, nothing, just white and shadow. Another shot from the right, closer. He was circling her the way wolves circle prey. Her heart hammered, but her breathing slowed. Calm, steady. She remembered Cole's voice. Don't chase, wait. So she waited. Snowflakes melted on her lashes. The forest was still. Then movement, barely a flicker, a glint of steel beneath a pine. She aimed, exhaled, fired. The Barrett roared, recoil slamming into her shoulder. Through the scope she saw him jerk, hit, but not down. He crawled deeper into the trees, blood trailing across snow. Target hit, she reported, voice calm but taut. Vega's voice urged, stay back, let's flank him together. No, Emma's tone was iron, this is mine. She slid from cover, Barrett in hand, moving through snow. Every step crunched, every breath clouded. Her eyes scanned the trees, heart steady now, as if she had already accepted whatever ending waited here. A voice carried through the forest, weak but sharp. You hesitate less now, good, you are becoming me. Emma froze, rifle raised. No, she said softly, I'm becoming me. Silence, then another shot. Bark exploded beside her head. Petrov was still dangerous, still hunting. She dropped flat, rolled, sighted. And there he was, half-hidden, rifle steady despite blood staining his coat. Their scopes met. Two crosshairs locked across the white silence. For a breathless second, time held. Emma thought of her grandfather, of his whispered fears, of the ghost she carried. She thought of her parents who would never understand, of the seals alive because she had pulled a trigger, of herself, the girl who once believed books were the only battles she'd ever fight. She exhaled, slow, final, and fired. The bullet struck true. Petrov's body jerked back, rifle slipping from his hands. He crumpled into the snow, the forest swallowing the sound. Emma stayed behind the scope, chest rising and falling until there was no doubt. Silence reclaimed the valley. Her radio crackled, Vega's voice cautious, status. Emma's voice was steady, Petrov down. There was no cheer, no celebration, just silence. They all knew what it meant. One shadow had fallen, but the directive remained. She lowered the Barrett. Her hands were steady, always steady. She walked down into the clearing, snow crunching beneath her boots. Petrov lay still, eyes open to the sky. For the first time he looked human, mortal, just a man who had carried his war too long. Emma stood over him, breath fogging the air. It ends with me, she whispered. Vega joined her, his hand brushing her shoulder. She didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed on Petrov until the wind began to cover him with snow. That night back at the safe house, Sullivan debriefed them. The directive's plans were slowed, convoys destroyed, but he said what they all knew: the war was far from over. Emma sat apart polishing the Barrett. Her reflection stared back, eyes shadowed but clear. She had won, but not without cost. Later she called her grandfather. When he answered, his voice broke at her silence. "You did it," he whispered. Emma's throat tightened. "Yes." "Was it worth it?" She looked at her hands. The ghost still clung. The silence still pressed heavy. "I don't know," she said honestly. Her grandfather sighed. "That's the only answer worth trusting." After the call, Emma stepped outside. Snow fell soft against her face. The world was quiet, almost peaceful. She thought of the men she had saved, of the man she had ended, of the path she had walked from a campus library to this mountain ridge. She whispered into the cold, words that belonged to no one but herself. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And with that, she shouldered the Barrett, turned toward the horizon, and walked into whatever wars remained.